Hello and welcome to another episode of Very Japanese Games, a series in which I review games only released in Japan. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at a fighting game that is relatively simple, yet has a lot of depth to gameplay and a frantic pace. It may not be the most technical fighter, or the best looking fighter, or even a well-known fighter, but it does stand the test of time as being innovative and fun. That game is the all-girl fighter, Asuka 120% Burning Festival Limited for the Sega Saturn. First, as this is not such a well-known series, I'll give a brief overview of the Asuka 120% games. The first game in the series, Asuka 120% Burning Festival, was released on the FM Towns in 1994, and was shortly after ported to the Sharp X68000 with an update released on the FM Towns later in the same year. However, the first step into the mainstream for the Asuka 120% series came in 1995, when they released another sequel to the game, Asuka 120% Burning Fest Maxima, for the PC Engine. The PC Engine version increased the amount of playable characters from 6 to 10, and made the game more balanced. And besides the excellent SNK fighter ports and Street Fighter II, it stood up as one of the best fighters on the system at the time. And it is easily the best at only using the standard controller. Afterwards, two more releases, Asuka 120% Burning Fest Special and Asuka 120% Burning Fest Excellent, were released on the PlayStation. These versions had updated graphics, but the difference between them is minor. Actually, beyond the balancing changes, the only main differences I can think of is that in one, a secret character is now normally playable. This series really reaches its apex with the Saturn release in 1997, which is the real topic of this episode. Asuka 120% Burning Fest Limited is easily the best version of the Asuka 120% games. This version features larger hand-drawn sprites and an updated fighting system, and more characters. Not only that, fighting is seemingly sped up, giving the game a much faster and more hectic pace. First, let's look at the characters. They're all themed by the school club to which they belong. First, we have the game's namesake, Asuka, who represents the chemistry club. Ryuko of the volleyball club. Torami of the karate club. Megumi of the cheerleading club. Kumi of the gymnastics club. Shinobu, who's a gang leader from another school. Kathy of the pro wrestling club. Kyoko of the softball club. Nana of the Japanese dance club. Karina of the biology club. And Tamaki of the tennis club. One of the first things you'll notice about the Asuka 120% games is that they're essentially 3-button fighters. Its first console release was on the PC Engine, a system that only had 2 buttons on its standard controller. However, don't let that fool you into thinking it's overly simple. The 2 buttons are either weak or strong attacks, but like the Marvel vs. Capcom games, the attacks change depending on the direction you're holding on the D-pad. This is also an extra move by pressing the 1 and 2 buttons, which is mapped to the C button on the Saturn. With only 3 buttons to use, again, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is quite similar. You might wonder about the fighting, but the system is quite deep. The basic fighting system is quite combo heavy, and the combo system works on a sort of chain combo system where weak attacks link into heavy attacks. There are also a lot of features that continue in more modern fighting games, including things like double jumping, dashing, and air combos, which you see in the Versus series of games, and things like guard cancels, roll counters, and attack counters that you find in the recent King of Fighters entries. Also, there are of course super moves of various types. Each character has specials and supers based on the club they represent, so Asuka throws chemical bombs, and Ryuko uses volleyballs, and so on. The supers work on a super meter bar like other fighters, but has the extra 120% mode, which allows for an unlimited amount of supers to be performed within a limited amount of time. Sadly, after this game was released, the original development team split up, leaving Asuka 120% Burning Fest Limited as the best and most highly regarded game in the series. The Asuka 120% series didn't end there, however. There is another release, Asuka 120% Burning Fest Final, on the PS1. But with development being shifted to a different team, big changes in the fighting system and different voice actresses, the game wasn't well received. There was also Asuka 120% Return on the PC, but this one only was a slight upgrade to Final. There's also an update made for the Saturn version by the original team in the form of a patch. However, that patch was distributed on a CDR and is exceedingly rare. Asuka 120% Burning Fest Limited is a 2D fighter on the Sega Saturn, full of interesting fighting mechanics and fun fights. I recommend it for fans of 2D fighters like Marvel Superheroes or the early Versus series games, or fans of anime girl fighters like Arcana Hearts or Variable Gia. So, that'll conclude this episode of Very Japanese Games, and I hope I was able to introduce you to another interesting game released only in Japan. So, until next time, keep on playing great games, no matter where you live.